What ducked up thing did you do as a teen? I argued with my dad constantly. I feel awful about it now. My dad had a temper, but mostly, I was just a little in my rebellious phase. Now that I'm an adult, Dad says I'm the child of his that he relates to the most, and that meant so much to me. I idolized my dad when I was a kid. I was a terrible asshole to him as a teenager, and now I'm back to my dad being my hero. Pre-teen, used to lay by the roadside like I had been hit by a car with my body folded awkwardly half in the road. Whenever someone would stop, I would get up suddenly and run away. Played with Omegle, was very fun. Then I got into a relationship with a 15-year-old mom. I didn't actually know how to handle relationships. I was 16, so even though she told me she loved me, I ended up ghosting her because I was too stupid to know how to maturely end things. In 8th grade, my best friend asked me if I would go and ask the boy she liked if he liked her and if he would go out with her. I went over and asked him if he liked her. He said no. Then I asked if he liked me. He said yes. And then I asked him to be my boyfriend. He said yes. Then I went right back to my friend and told her that he didn't like her, but that he liked me and was now my boyfriend. I don't know why I did that. Stole money out of one of those donation cans at my job for kids with cancer. Only got caught because the woman who comes to collect it each month noticed it was pretty empty, so my bosses checked on it more and caught me once on the CCTV when I wasn't being sneaky enough. Totally ducked up on my part. I was fired. They didn't press charges and I did return the money plus more. If you guys know the ride The Waltzers, always there at UK fairs, there was a sign that said topless girls go free, so me, F, and few other friends went on for free for a laugh. We were teens, under 18, and the ride works by men spinning the seat things by hand. They took photos of us whilst spinning and nothing we could do about it. We just laughed at the time. It didn't feel ducking up then, but knowing some guy somewhere has photos of me topless just so I could save you a cute 3-4 feels a bit ducked up now. More funny than ducked up. I live in the boonies. When I had my graduation party, we needed to put something out at the end of our driveway for people to find us. So, my best friend volunteered to flag people down. We proceeded to duct tape him to the telephone pole, write "party here" on it across his chest, stuck a lit joints in his mouth and left him there for an hour while people showed up. It worked marvelously and we cut him down when we heard police sirens. There was a guy that I ducking hated at work. Just a real dirtbag kind of guy. Well, work only has one restroom. I'm finishing my business and I hear a knock at the door. It's dirtbag telling me to hurry up because he has to take a ducking crap. I tell him I'll be out in a minute. So I grab the can of Lysol and pull out about 3 feet of toilet paper and spray it down a bit. Roll it all the way back. Unfortunately, one of the other guys jumps the queue for the bathroom in front of dirtbag. For the rest of the day that dude is scratching his ass and shifting uncomfortably. Made dinner wrong one night and my mom accused me of sabotage. Apparently this was a hell of an offense. It is now a sibling inside joke. When I was 12, I let a friend, wasn't a friend, douchebag kid who learned some really bad habits from his alcoholic, drug addicted parents, convince me to break and enter into an abandoned house. About a month later, I was giving a statement at a police station because someone tried to light a fire in a closet there. Either the other kid did it, probably, or someone else did, and we both almost took a rap for that. I suspect the friend because he ended up in juvenile detention shortly after, and right before his parents got arrested for meth, and also right after their house mysteriously burned down. Shocker. If you keep your meth equipment in a fireproof safe, they discover that pretty fast after a fire, and investigators are pretty good at their job. Me and my buddies befriended a gas station worker and would consistently steal red Sour Patches from the store. What terrible human beings we were. I took advantage of the fact that my mom was emotionally weak. I'd argue with her just to get her to cry and win the argument. I had no appreciation for how great my mom was and the sacrifices she made for me and my brother. Today I'm not like that anymore, but I wish that I could go back and treat her the way she is supposed to be treated. Won't exchange her for the world. Edit. Grammar. At the age of 13 years old, I took the keys to my parents' Jeep and went joyriding through the neighborhood at 3 AM. All was well until I was speeding down the road in front of my house and lost control of the car going towards the end of the cul-de-sac. By some miracle, instead of flying off the cliff at the end of the cul-de-sac, I slammed into my neighbor's big concrete mailbox, breaking it in half, but saving my life. Amazingly, the car still worked. Radiator was a bit busted, but it still drove. I was so nervous putting the car up that when I was pulling into the garage, I accidentally hit the gas instead of the brakes, crashing into a little storage room in the corner of the garage. The next day, everyone was wondering what happened. Me, being so smart, I said I was skateboarding in the garage and ran into the wall, destroying the door and wall of the little room. I still have pictures included at the bottom of this comment. It didn't take long for my parents to know what had really happened, as my story was an obvious lie. This was about 16 years ago now. Bonus. Pictures from the incident. Mailbox. Left square bracket. Left square bracket. Room in garage. Left square bracket. Left square bracket. Edit. Fix links to pictures. A few things. One thing that came to mind was wielding a wooden sword out of a car window and screaming at a classmate. As a joke, of course. I didn't realize there was a cop approaching the school as we were pulling out of my high school. The cop forcibly removed me from the vehicle, threw me in a snowbank and arrested me in front of my high school. Luckily the charges were dropped and it's now a funny story. I was living in a group home for 6 months and there was one girl who was a total itch. A lot of us were going through stuff and could have been just as hostile, but for the most part we all just defaulted to friendship except her. So as a courtesy to her to make her cognizant of what would happen in the real world if she kept treating people the way she treated people, I may or may not have put Nia in her conditioner. 17-year-old me learned fighting fire with fire is no bueno. Edit. Words. I was really messed up mentally after my best friend broke my heart and ghosted me. I gave up my virginity to a 42-year-old man when I was 17. I didn't think it was a big deal at the time, but that ducked me up even more. A month after that, I got into a relationship with a 23-year-old who was homeless and jobless. I would sneak him into my parents' house every night. He turned out to be emotionally and sexually abusive. I didn't get out of that relationship until I was in college because I moved to a different city. Used a family member's electric toothbrush to masturbate. Multiple suicide attempts. Probably darker than others on here, but I'm glad I'm still standing. This is more of an almost did. When I was 16 or 17 and finally realizing I was gay, I started chatting with a lot of different men online, including some guy who was in his 20s. I was a virgin in pretty much all senses of the word, and also horny as hell, so we chatted. He didn't live very far, and he wanted to take my virginity. He was also knocked out. We lived in a fairly rural area, so I guess he was discreet. I was also knocked out. When the weekend came, I chickened out and went to a friend's for the weekend. My roommate called me a day or two into the weekend and said some man had been calling our house phone asking for me, but wouldn't say who he was. I didn't respond to any messages he sent me, and then eventually he sent me a pretty ominous, threatening one suggesting outing me or something along those lines. So I finally wrote him back saying I regretted our convo and that I didn't think we should talk. He explained that he only wanted a response as he didn't want me to out him either. Thankfully, that was the end of it, but it was a pretty risky thing I almost did. The guy freaked me out big time, and who knows if he was even who he said he was online. Fortunately, I ended up losing my virginity a couple years later, after high school, in a totally not traumatizing fashion. Late teens, 18. I was a bartender at a nightclub and got drunk almost every night I worked. Drove home after every shift between 4 AM and 6 AM. Looking back, now 28, it's one of the biggest regrets I have. Poured 2 40-pound bags of dry dog food in a mean neighbor's pool. It created a 4-inch layer of brown mush. Got confused about religious morality, so snorted things rather than drank. I mean, teenage drinking did eventually happen, but after like a year of snorting. I would occasionally find crushed used cigars on a sidewalk near my high school and smoke them, thinking I was a badass and inhaling them like an idiot, which you're not supposed to do with cigars. Smear the words "Narkill" in my own at a IHOP restroom after finding out they discontinued the popcorn shrimp basket. Drive 100 kilometers just to get ice cream on a school day. I've only got 3 years left of being a teenager and I haven't done anything ducked up so far. Any tips to avoid making any mistakes? Lied to my parents for 3 years about dating a boy I said was gay. When I broke up with him he got very abusive and the school had to get involved. When my parents found out, I told the school they were verbally abusive to me. Didn't lie, just said the right things at the right time, and social services got called. Nothing serious happened to my parents, but they tested me for STDs, including HIV and syphilis without my consent. I'm glad I stopped because it could have really turned into something worse. I used to catch black widow spiders around the house and put them in a glass cup. Then I would put the glass cup on a frying pan with the cup opening on the pan, so the spider would be touching the pan. I would then proceed to light the gas stove top and watch the spider dance its way to death. I did this to at least 30 or 40 spiders. I still feel bad. Never got caught either. Used Tinder when I was 15 to try to hook up with older men. It still took them 3 months to ban me. It would be fair to say that my sister and I did not get along as teenagers, but that really doesn't communicate the violence and abuse involved. Childhood was kind of problematic. We worked it out eventually. There was a really annoying kid who kept pestering me to get him drugs, and I wasn't a drug dealer or even well connected. So after a couple of weeks of this I soaked some blotter paper in aspirin water and sold him a sheet of acid for $100. Turns out he didn't want to do any drugs. He wanted to be a hustler and make money. This resulted in him getting his ass kicked after selling it all to unsatisfied customers at the club. Don't worry, karma came back and whooped my ass just as hard in the preceding years. Broke another kid's nose because he tried to bully me into giving him my lunch allowance. When I was 15-17 I used to dress very provocatively and wear lots of makeup to make myself appear older. Sneak into bars and clubs with my friend who would do the same and just wait for guys to buy us drinks. We lied about our age and flirted with guys in their early 20s. Completely took advantage of them just to get free drinks and get wasted. I now recognize how stupid and dangerous that was. What the hell were we thinking? Peeing in my older sister's shampoo. Never said I regret it. My friends and I would roam a few neighborhoods over and we would tear down people's Christmas lights. I have always regretted it and wish there was some way I could apologize and make restitution. Late 70s. I danced nude and started moaning like a girl. BTW, I'm a fat male. Took a hit in a park water fountain during the middle of the night. Not sure what possessed me to do that. We were also driving our cars around the baseball fields. I was a dumb, stupid teenager once upon a time. I was 15 at the time and decided to take my older brother's car for a quick ride. He was out with his friends and left the keys at home. I was by myself. I only went up the street and back down. I probably drove for about 2 minutes tops. Anyway, I arrived back at my house and parked the car up. There was one slight issue. I wasn't happy with my parking, so I decided to reverse out of my driveway and straighten up. Now, my brother's car didn't have a right-sided mirror. It was missing when he bought it. I foolishly didn't pay attention to the car parked in the sideway opposite and crashed into it. I parked back in the drive and ran inside. This was in the evening, so it was quite dark and I couldn't see the damage. I didn't sleep that night and stayed up looking out of my bedroom window. Eventually around 7 AM I see the owner of the car with his head in his hands as there was a dent in his door. I felt like it but was too pussy to own up. I checked my brother's car and luckily it didn't have a scratch. I think about this a lot and how much of a ratty and stupid move it was. I think I was a preteen, but I grew up with a narcissistic father and I had a lot of rage when I was young. I usually didn't respond well when someone was being mean as my emotions were overwhelming and I had very poor emotional management and coping skills. Anyways, some kids were ostracizing me from the neighborhood and being mean. I remember crying, being overwhelmed with shame and hurt, then that slowly turning into rage. I went back into my house and down into the basement to find something to get back at them with. The first thing I saw was some sort of knife saw. I grabbed it and ran back upstairs. I didn't break a stride. I ran directly from the house to the group that was laughing at me. They must have seen what was in my hand, because they took off rather quickly. I chased each of them back to their houses. At the time I felt like I had taught them a lesson. There are more stories from my childhood kinda like this, but I won't share them today. So, that was a ducked up thing that I did when I was young. Now only 3 people know this: me, my wife, and Reddit. Had no internet access at home, so used to go to my friend's house to go on chat rooms. When we were 14 we agreed to meet up with a 24-year-old man we met online. Willingly got into his car and drove around with him for a while. Then I started feeling uncomfortable and made an excuse to go home, but my friend wouldn't come with me. She wanted to stay with the guy. Don't need to go into details about what happened to her, but I still feel bad about it. And we all got drunk at the beach. One of the illegal bottle rockets shifted trajectory in the sand and shot up Mark's board shorts. Not gonna lie, it was hilarious. I was dating an older guy while I was in high school. His younger sister was a grade or 2 above me and was rich. She was straight out of an episode of Hoarders in her room and it was absolutely filthy. So one day she brings home a kitten and I'm steaming mad because she's not gonna take care of it at all. And sure enough, once the novelty wore off, I would be the one cleaning the litter when I could etc. And because it was locked up away from people, it was basically feral and would lurch out and attack everyone in the house. When he moved out I took out a lot of the turds from the litter box and stuffed them into the fitted sheet, pillowcases and mattress box etc. Since she never changed it. NSFW. As a teen, I still am. I used to have an Instagram account where I would follow random girls who posted NSFW posts and jerk off to them every night, 2 to 4 am, on weekends and 1 to 2 am, on school days. I also watched porn on my phone and thought it wasn't in my browser history. It didn't show up there. Turns out the browser history updated every 2 hours on Google, and one day my parents asked for my phone and they started going through it. They searched for minutes but it felt like hours and they finally got to Instagram. I realized last night I didn't want to log out because I was trading news with this girl and wanted to continue the conversation, and as soon they opened Instagram, 1,000 pictures of nude bodies of girls popped up. Instagram wasn't that secure back then and people didn't seem to care about posting nudes, and I was dying inside, and they gave me a lecture about how this is not okay at that age. I was 15, why, and how I will rot in hell if I continued. I decided to stop and logged out forever. To this day they haven't discovered my search history. Lit a fire in a vacant block of bushland. Spread very quickly. Got a warning for it, and my record expunged when I turned 18. I should note that I was severely mentally ill at the time. In 9th grade, my French teacher forced me to do corrections for her on lunch hours to pass her class, as I had not handed in most of the assignments. For some unknown reason, I had enough of this and decided that the best solution was to jerk off on her keyboard on my last day of correcting stuff. Why I did this, I do not know. I was a tubby little shy kid, and I never acted out, as the classroom was unlocked during lunches. I was never accused of anything. I forgot about this until 10 years later. It came back to me when I was discussing high school with friends and whoosh, I was brought back to that moment. My friends howled and it's still a running joke in our friend group that I break in new keyboards for them. Nice try. Local police department. Smashed out some guy's car windows because he rolled my friend for her $20. But I guess in my defense the methodica was supposed to get her a quarter sack of weed, but the asshole ran off with her money instead. She went to my house crying and bent out her shape and told me what happened. So I told her to take me to his house. I picked up some rocks and there you go lol, hopefully that taught him not to steal from young girls. I downloaded a Disney game without my mom's approval. I pretended to be a girl and started to duck around with some weebs on this WhatsApp hentai group chat. About 9th 10th grade, I hung out with kids that found entertainment by blowing up and lighting things on fire. The creme of the crop was when we'd put Works toilet bowl cleaner into plastic 2-liter bottles with balls of aluminum foil, cap it, shake it, toss it, and run like our lives depended on it. The explosion could be heard from a few streets over. That phase ended once the kids from the adjacent neighborhood rode in on their bikes and introduced us to the devil's lettuce. Looking back, I'm thankful that we never really got in trouble for any of it. Borrowed, kinda stole, my mum's car for a joyride with mates. I hadn't a driver's license at this point. Stalled it in front of a police car a few times. Got pulled over. Well, I'm currently a teen and I haven't done anything ducked up. My buddy took a piece of plywood and cut it out in the shape of a cat. He painted it black and glued pennies where the eyes are. He would put it in the middle of the road and people would swerve or hit it thinking it was a real cat. Cut myself. For years. Haven't done it in years and hopefully never gonna do it again. Somebody gave me an entire bottle of 2mg Klonopin when I was like 13. I had no idea what they were and just wanted to seem cool. I started handing them out all over school and one of the girls took way too many. She was in a coma for 3 days. Caught one of those house lizards. Named it Izzy. Kept it in a small container. Then hid it from my parents. I forgot about it and only found out almost a year later. It smelled horrible and was decomposing. Obviously it died and I'm still low-key guilty. I got my wisdom teeth removed and they gave me Vicodin for the pain. My mom was going out of town for the weekend so her sister was staying with me in case I needed anything. I decided to set a few of the Vicodin aside for a rainy day. When my mom got home she counted them and accused her sister of stealing them. That's how I found out my aunt was a drug addict. Never said anything. This kid that lived down the street from me used to bully me on a regular basis. So long story short, one day me and a few other friends went to his house. They were out of town and didn't lock the doors. Know it, and it on the floor. Stole all of his baseball cards. Pissed in his milk. Now the place was already ducked up. Come to think of it as an adult, that was probably why he was an asshole. Anyways, I got caught because we did this like 3 times. His neighbor told his parents they saw us going in and out of his house. At court they never mentioned anything about the milk and we took turns. Soon, I ended up having to go to DJJ, Department of Juvenile Justice, for this. Spent 45 days there and then went to a halfway house for 6 months. I was 12 at the time. Strapped lizards to bottle rockets. I burnt down a library with a stink bomb. They banned me because I cursed in front of a library. Well, I made their library smell like it and no one knows it was me because it was the last day of school. I tried to kick my brother's butt softly and almost broke his hip. We used to ring random people's landline phones and scream at them. Not even proper prank calls. More than less than. In 9th grade we had to stand when the teacher entered our class, so in biology class me and my friends did a Nazi salute when she entered. Was funny. Probably far from the most ducked up thing I did though. I took a massive diarrhea it all over the backseat of this kid's car from high school, who later ended up getting arrested by the FBI for having a kill list and telling someone about it in school. In high school, I got pissed at someone I had been formerly friends with, so I decided to crazy glue his locker shut. The catch was I used 3 tubes and did it right before spring break, so it had over a week to set. I not only did the hinges in the lock, I also went around the perimeter of the entire door. I had to cut the front of the locker off for him to get his things.